who's here today. It was my honor to interview you, Tina, and Jim, and I know Evan's on here, and many others that I had on the podcast as well. It's just been an incredible honor to meet such amazing people who are literally changing the world, and to be a part of that. Just I have no words for it. I'm absolutely speechless. So just to be a part of this organization, and to know you all it's an overwhelming blessing for me. So thank you all for everything that you do. Um, and so saying that, my story, in early October of 2003, I found out that my dad had stomach cancer, and he was very young. He was 53 years old, and I wasn't ready to lose my dad, and I was very upset. And it was very difficult news for me to take. And at this point in my life, I was very self-centered. I didn't know anything about spirituality or, I loved people. Don't get me wrong, but I had a lot of growth to do in my life, and so I took his diagnosis very personally. Um, in on October 10th, the morning of October 10th in 2003, we were going to go down to the Las Vegas Strip. We lived in Las Vegas at the time, and my brother was coming to town. We were having like a little family reunion because, of my dad's diagnosis. So some people were coming into town, and they wanted to, we were going to get together and have a good time. So we got a hotel room down on the Strip, and we were going to head out there. And I wasn't in the mood to have a good time. I was very upset about my dad, like I said. And so I was upset with my husband. I took it out on my husband. And that morning is the first and only time I ever told him that I hated him. And I didn't hate him, but I was overwhelmed with just this grief of my dad's diagnosis. So like I said, I took it out on him. So I argued with him all morning. And though he wasn't arguing back with me, he was very understanding. He was a really good husband. Um, I guess he was just taking it because he knew how upset I was. And I was just taking it out on him. And I didn't speak to him the rest of the day. So we drove down to the Strip and met my brother. We kind of hung out with him all day. My parents watched the kids. My boys were pretty small at that time, 3 and 10 years old. And we hung out with my brother, kind of just walking around the Strip, having a good time, having a few drinks, ignoring my husband the whole time. And then my parents decide they want to head back towards the house. And so we go up to the room, and I take the boys, and we're in my room, and I tell my husband that I'm sorry. I said, finally, I said, I'm sorry that I have been so mean to you all day. Why don't you go out with my brother and just have a good time? Don't worry about, what time you come back. Just do whatever you want. Have a great time, and please forgive me. And thank God I did that, because that was the last time that I would ever see him. He left with my brother, and as he was in Vegas, they have these escalators that go up to these bridges to go across the road. So you don't have to wait for crosswalks. It's very busy. And so he went up the escalator to go across the bridge to go from the Tropicana to the MGM Grand. And he was attacked at the top of the escalator by a homeless person, and knocked out. He was knocked out. My brother called my sister-in-law, and I had gone down to the oxygen bar, and she found me at the oxygen bar with the boys, and she said, you need to hurry up and, go find Rob. Rob was my brother. He said, Terry's been hurt, and Terry was my husband. So I thought maybe he got into a fight. in our early 20s, he had gotten into a couple fights. But, he was older now. It hadn't happened in many, many years. And so I thought maybe he like broke his pinky or something, or maybe he just got mad and punched a wall for whatever reason. I didn't know what was happening. So I'm talking to my brother on the phone. I didn't have a cell phone. My sister-in-law is letting me use hers. And she was saying, my brother was saying, he was telling me he didn't know if Terry was okay. And that didn't make sense to me. How do you not know if someone's okay? You just look at them and say, hey, he's okay. So I was confused and I didn't know what was happening. And I started to feel this frantic energy like building up through my chest and coming up to my head. And I'm just at this point, I'm like running to find my brother, and I find him, and he won't tell me what happened. He won't tell me if my husband's okay. And we're sitting outside the MGM Grand. I don't know where we were. It was outside. It was like a big paved area, but there wasn't cars, and there was an ambulance off in the distance. And it seemed like I was sitting there forever. I sat on the curb, just kind of freaking out the whole time. And then all of a sudden they wheeled the gurney up with my husband. It was about maybe like 300 feet or something like that away, not really close, not terribly far. And I yelled out his name, and he would always look over at me and give me a thumbs up. That was his thing to kind of do. Like if we were at a party and he was across the room and I looked over at him, he would give me a thumbs up and smile at me. And so he didn't even turn his head to look at me. No thumbs up. So I knew right then there was something really wrong. And I ran over to him, and the paramedics stopped me, and they said I couldn't come any closer, that I was too frantic. So my brother rode in the ambulance to the hospital, and I took a cab. So fast forward a little bit, no one can really tell us anything except that he's got a severe brain injury. He had hit his head when he got knocked out, hit his head on the back of his head pretty bad on something. I don't know what it was, but so I had been staying in the hospital with him. He was in the UMC, which is a university hospital in Vegas, the University Medical Center. And it was a teaching hospital. So it was very busy, very light, very bright, very active, people in and out of the room all the time, lots of talking going on. And so I wasn't leaving his side. I was staying with him, and there was only a chair in the room for me to sleep on. So I pulled the chair up next to his bed, and I would sleep next to his bed, just kind of put my feet up on his bed and sleep there next to him in the chair. And with everything else that was going on, not knowing if he was going to survive, he was in a drug-induced coma. I didn't get to talk to him anymore. I didn't get to see him anymore. I mean, I saw his body, but not interact with him. So on the third day, I decided to go to my brother-in-law's house and get some sleep well, and then go back to the hospital the next day. And so this was, I think it was October 13th. And I started getting dizzy. And first, I'm going to tell everyone that I never heard of a shared death experience. I never even heard of a near-death experience or anything like that. So I didn't know what was happening at all. And I actually didn't even know that it was a shared death experience until maybe a year ago. But so what happened is I started getting dizzy a couple times, so dizzy that I had to grab the wall to steady myself. It felt like I was falling. And then one time it happened, the third time, I was sitting on the couch and I started feeling dizzy, and this time it wouldn't go away. And it felt like I was dying. I felt like my heart was racing. There was intense panic. And I told my brother-in-law, I said, I think I'm dying. I think I'm going to have a heart attack or something. And he called his mom, my husband's mom, and she got on the phone with me and she said, listen, you're having a panic attack. Just settle down and, breathe into a paper bag and you'll be okay. So I thought that's what it was a panic attack. But I've had panic attacks since then, and this next part of the story is what really differentiates them from a panic attack, because those first things do sound like a panic attack. But during this time, the TV was on, and I remember seeing a circle of clear vision, and everything around it was blurry around the TV screen. So there was just this little tiny circle of clear vision that I could see, and everything was blurry. And around, instead of just being like blurry, like where you couldn't see it well, it was almost like it was streaked back, like in Star Wars or Star Trek when the ships take off and the stars kind of streak back and they turn into lines. It was like that. Everything around this clear vision of circle just kind of like stretched back and turned like stretched. Um, and everything started to sound like it was coming through a tunnel. The sounds sounded like, the best way that I can describe it is like if you were ever talking through a PVC pipe when you were a kid or something like that, playing with your friends. It sounded like that, very plasticky and tunnely sounding. The TV sounded like that. And this intense fear that I had turned into a knowing that I was going to die instead of a believing or thinking that I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And then my consciousness started flickering back and forth between my husband's body and my body. And it wasn't just, it's almost like I was both of us at the same time. But I was him and I was me at the same time. And instead of when I was him, instead of thinking that I was my husband, I was me in the hospital bed dying. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must have hallucinated what happened, that I must have thought that it happened to him. I dreamed it up, but it really happened to me. And I'm laying in the hospital bed and I'm dying right now. And I had this intense fear of death. And I could hear everyone, not hear, that's not the right word. It was like I could feel everyone's thoughts in the hospital. He had so many friends and family come to visit. We're from the Atlanta area. And as soon as his friends found out, every single one of them flew out to see him, and they stayed at the hospital with him. And so many of his family did as well. So at any given point, there was maybe 50 people at the hospital. We were definitely clogging up the little lobby there that they have. And I could feel their thoughts, and they were thinking thoughts for me. They were thinking, oh, poor Tia, poor her. She's so young. She has a family. What are they going to do? This is such a tragedy. Can't believe this happened. And I could feel the pain that they felt for me as well in their thoughts. And I think that I was thinking that they were thinking poor Tia because I had become him. There was no me on the couch. I was both of us. But when I was in him, even though I was both of us at the same time, it was like separate at the same time as well. I don't know how to explain it. But when I was him, it wasn't that I was inside his body. It was that I was me. And so this happened for a little while, and then it stopped and it ended. And I thought, well, that was really weird. Um, and then I went to the hospital the next day. I don't know if it was the next day or the same day. And the hospital room just felt different. It didn't feel like he was there anymore. I don't know how to explain that. It felt like his energy was gone, and I didn't know anything about energy or spirituality. Like I said, I was a Christian. I didn't question anything. Everything was just very inside the box, cut and dry, no magical anything, no energy. It's just when you die, you either go to heaven or you go to hell, and there's no like sensing someone's energy or anything like that. That wasn't allowed. That was like sinful. But I didn't feel his energy in the room anymore. It felt different. It did feel different. And after that, his body started to break down. And starting that day, his lungs collapsed, both of his lungs collapsed, and his body started filling up with air, and his eyes were filling up with air. And in 2 more days, he was on life support for 2 more days. And then I was forced to make a decision if I wanted to continue keeping him on life support or take him off. Like, this was it. And I made that very difficult decision to take him off life support. Even though I didn't want to, I was encouraged to take him off life support. I couldn't stay with him in the hospital. When they unplugged him, I had to leave. I got a ride home, and I couldn't go home either. I went to his brother's house. So I couldn't go home for a while afterwards. So my boys and I stayed with his brother for a little while. And then when I went home, things started to change there too. I started having out of body experiences. And the very first one that I had was I was laying with my 3-year-old son in his bed. I was sleeping with him in his room, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this beautiful golden light all over in the room. And it was filled with a feeling of peace and love. And I could feel the emotion in the light. And around the door and the closet, the cracks around the door and around the closet, there was this brighter golden light that I could see coming through the cracks. And I realized then that I wasn't laying on the top of the bed, but I was laying like on the side of my back. This is my back here. My back was laying right here on the bed, and I was facing out. And then I was kind of observing up in the corner. And in this golden light, there was glitter, solid glitter, just floating all around. It was almost like solid glitter. It was so much glitter in this room, and it was so beautiful. And I felt my husband's presence so strongly. And the glitter was like, if you've ever seen the specks of dust in the sunlight coming through the window, it was like that. But instead of dust, it was this beautiful golden glitter. And it was such a magical experience. And I didn't know what had happened. So I spoke to the church and, was wondering what was going on. And they told me that if I didn't stop what I was doing, I was going to go crazy. And that it was not healthy for me to do that. But I wasn't doing anything on purpose. It was happening to me. And so that wasn't the answer that I was looking for. I wanted to know what was happening, because this wasn't just something. I kept having out of body experiences. I didn't know what an out of body experience was. I found a spiritual church in Las Vegas, and they told me that it was an out of body experience. And I thought they were crazy. I thought that you can't have an out of body experience. That's not possible. And we had just gotten a computer. It was in 2003. So I just got my first computer, just a few months before. So I went home and I searched for out of body experiences. And I think I found some groups in Yahoo that were talking about out of body experiences. And lo and behold, that's what it sounded like. They were describing what was happening to me. So my world opened up. I realized at that point in time that I didn't know things, or that I wasn't taught things that are true. That things are being kept from me. That there's so much more that's out there than I was taught. And I continued having these out of body experiences, and they were just amazing. Um, and sometimes I would hear voices, and sometimes I would just look at myself. And a lot of the times I would just look at myself. And this was almost 21 years ago. And I continued to learn from this time in my life. The out of body experiences continued for many, many years. I think I haven't had one maybe like 5 or 6 years. So they continued for that long. But even now, 21 years later, I continue to look back and learn from these experiences. And I just had an epiphany recently where I feel like there was the reason why I was having these out of body experiences and looking at myself was because I was something, me maybe, or my husband, or someone, God, I don't know, was trying to wake me up, and I was supposed to be observing my life, observing my experience instead of being so fast asleep in it. And I was so fast asleep in my experience. So I had many other experiences. Many other things happened. I I don't know. One time I had an experience where I was laying in bed, and I thought my boyfriend was walking through the kitchen to come to bed, and I heard the footsteps, and I heard the door, someone walked through the door into my bedroom, and then I felt someone lay down on the bed next to me. And I was for sure that it was my boyfriend, because who else could that be? But they put their arm around me. My back was facing them. And when they put their arm around my waist, I could see them with my mind. I don't know. I could see them inside my head. And it wasn't my boyfriend. It was this entity, a being that was a human figure with no hair, no clothes, no gender specific, just if a little kid were to draw like an outline of someone, something like that. No facial features or anything like that, but their skin was covered in swirling, brightly colored energy, all different colors, and it was swirling all around on their skin. Um, and I don't know what that was. I still don't know what that was. And some people think that maybe it was alien abduction. Some people think that maybe it was my husband. I don't know what that was. But I've had too many experiences to even really talk about. They've just been overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for them, because they taught me so much about grief, for one. I grieved my husband so heavily and so long. Um, and had I known the things that I know now, it may not have been so difficult. But it ruins my life for, many, many years, more than a decade. It ruined my life. Even though I was having these experiences, I didn't know what was truly happening. And it really just took time for me to be able to interpret them or let them sink in, for me to understand them. Um, and I always felt that I wanted to help others in some way. Like, I didn't want people to suffer like I did. I didn't want people to struggle like I did. And I wanted people to know there's way more than what we know, or, at least what I was taught when I was a little kid. And I kind of feel like times are changing now, but most of us, when we were children, we weren't told the things that really we should have been told. And so I didn't ever know what to do, how I could help people. I was just, a very basic general person. So, I just had a job and lived in society and tried to pay my bills and stuff. Like, what can I do? I didn't have any special training. I wasn't a psychiatrist or a doctor or anything like that. I was a real estate agent. Um, and that's, not really a great topic when you're trying to help someone find a house or sell their house. They don't want to talk about things like that. So I just kind of let it be. And one day, about no, it was January of this year, late January of this year, I had this calling. And I always thought that real estate was my calling because I enjoy real estate. I enjoy helping people find their house or sell their house. It's very fulfilling for me. It's a big deal. So I always thought that real estate was my calling until I had a calling. And then I realized real estate wasn't my calling. It was my podcast. And I was sitting on the couch and I remember this feeling overcame me, and it was almost as if someone was talking inside my head. And I was arguing with this voice inside my head, and it was saying, start the podcast now, start a podcast about near-death experiences, start a podcast where you can share people's experiences, their stories. And I was like, you gotta be kidding. Like, I don't know how to do that. And I was telling everyone before we started recording, my least skill is public speaking. I do not like public speaking. It makes me very nervous. And so I was arguing with this voice and I was saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't like to speak and I don't know how to interview people. And I've never done anything like that. YouTube at that time was this big beast of a thing. How do you make a YouTube channel and post videos? I didn't know any of that. And then this voice said, "Do you not trust me?" And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens just to see, maybe I'm crazy." So I gave it a shot and then it was like doors opened left and right. I met amazing people um, who gave me contacts of more amazing people. And it was just like, I started to realize, okay, I see why you asked me to trust because you got this. I'm just moving through the motions and you're making things happen. And it's just been a spectacular, and it's been putting my spiritual journey on overdrive because I get to talk to so many people almost every single day. I talk to people about their spirituality, their experiences. I'm learning so much more than I could have ever imagined. It's just been a remarkable experience. And so I guess to put it all together, my husband's death was extremely tragic. And if I could go back and choose to do it all over again and choose that outcome, I don't know that I wouldn't choose that he would die. But even though it was really difficult for me and my kids and his family and my family and all of our friends, everybody, so many people, it was a great gift also. It was a gift to start my spiritual journey and to learn who we really are. And now I know that he didn't die. One of the hardest things for me was that he was an atheist and I was a Christian. And to me, an atheist goes to hell. And I had tried to talk him into going to church with me, and he had just agreed that we would start going to church, and we hadn't gone yet. And I thought he had gone to hell. Oh, Jim, let me read what you said. Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Can I read what Jim said? I'll read it. When Tia says she was not sure she could find the words, in prayer, it is better to have a heart without words than words without a heart. Yes, that is very beautiful. Thank you for that. But so
I was on mute. I just want to add, if I could, I don't want to interrupt your thought. In his willingness to now attend church, just remember, he who does not have a temple in his heart will never find his heart in any temple. I find solace in that.
Yes,
I just wanted
very
to,
much.
sorry, I didn't realize my typing was going to interrupt you.
Oh no, I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you. There's no interruptions. I feel like everything is very divinely guided. And I tell my guests that in my podcast too. It's divinely guided. What's meant to come through will come through. So I don't have like a hard, fast way of doing things. I like that you typed that. It was meaningful. Um, but yeah, so I hope that my podcast, the whole reason that I do it, that I continue to work so hard doing it, um, is to give hope to people that either have lost someone or they're afraid of death, or maybe they're facing death, or maybe their loved one is facing death. Whatever it is, maybe it has nothing to do with death. Maybe it's another struggle that they're trying to figure out in life. But I just hope to give people some peace and some hope. And my main goal is to help people live a better life by releasing fear, by releasing those negative thoughts around certain types of events. Um, I forgot to tell you this too. One of the things I was so blessed to have experienced was near-death experience is where they were very healing on my path, my healing path. Um, I had never heard of them, and I would go to Borders at the time every day after work and look at the books, and I would buy the ones that really stood out to me. I had so many books, metaphysical books, alchemy, spiritual, whatever it was. And I found a book one time called Life After Life by Dr. Moody. And I took it home and I devoured it. I think I read it all in one day. And in the back was his contact information. And on a whim, I didn't think he was going to respond to me, but I emailed him and told him what had happened to me. And he emailed me back and invited me to his home in Alabama. And I have family and friends out in Georgia, so I flew back to spend some time with some friends and in Georgia, and got a rental car and went out to spend the day with Dr. Moody one time. And it was amazing. He let me visit his psychomantium. He had this amazing third floor. He lived in this old mill on the river, and there was this third floor that was full of incredible artwork, and he had a psychomantium in there, and I got to sit in his psychomantium. And though I didn't have an experience in his psychomantium, I went home and I created my own. And let me tell you, before I go there, Dr. Moody is one of the most kind, loving people I've ever met in my life. And if you ever watch a documentary with him or an interview with him, a podcast, he's not faking it for the camera. That is his genuine, authentic self. He is such a gift to this world. And we wouldn't be where we are right now spiritually if it wasn't for Dr. Moody. And I'm not affiliated with him in any way, but he helped me heal my heart. He helped so many people heal their hearts. He helps so many people just in so many ways. But anyway, so I went home and I made a psychomantium in my house, like just a little makeshift one. It wasn't as nice or professional as his. And I didn't have I just had my little, I wasn't sleeping in my bedroom anymore. So I made my bedroom into a psychomantium, and it had blinds on the window, so it wasn't as dark as his. And I just set up a mirror so it was angled up at the ceiling. And I would lay on my bed and stare into this mirror every day until I had an experience. And I did finally have an experience. I don't know how long it took. It took some time. But I did see someone, excuse me, come out of the mirror and float above me. It was like a shadow, like a grayish, almost like smoke, see through. And this just human figure, no identifying features or anything like that. And I felt it stroke my arm. It was laying, like floating above me, like laying over me, and reached down and stroked my arm. And I got goosebumps. Mm-hmm. And so I know that it was real. And so I truly feel that was my husband. And then I'm going to tell you another time in a spiritual church where there was a medium was like a special guest, and we were all sitting in a circle. And I had already spoken to a couple weeks before this other woman there. And she said that she could see my husband. And I was new to this, and I wasn't really believing it, but I was kind of, dipping my toe in here and, seeing what I could gather, if there was any kind of value to that group for me. And this really kind of solidified it for me. This medium described my husband to a T, standing behind this other woman who said she could see my husband. And I was like, wait a minute. If he's standing over there, does that mean that he's related to her? Or could he be related to me? Because you just described my husband to a T, like down to his black eye when he had when he died. The right eye, the exact outfit that he had on, the exact hairstyle. It was incredible. And so our loved ones have never left us. They're always watching over us. It took me a long time. I'm very hard-headed. My brother calls me a knucklehead, and it's probably pretty true. I'm very skeptical. And so it takes me a long time to believe something. And I didn't have any beliefs around anything like this before he died. And it took a decade or more for them to finally sink in. I believed in the near-death experiences, but I didn't necessarily believe that he was visiting me, that he was still watching over me. I wanted to believe it, but I wasn't yet knowing it. And eventually I got to the point of knowing it. And he would help me out, my day. One time I couldn't find my son's wipes, and I got really frustrated, and I didn't want to go to the store. My son was 3 years old when my husband died, and I didn't want to go to the store and buy wipes. And so I searched the house up and down, and I stood in the hallway, and I just said, Terry, tell me where the wipes are. Like with so much emotion. And it was like something took over my body, and I walked right over, picked up a blanket, and the wipes were right there. And I searched the whole house. So I know our loved ones are with us. Like I said, our loved ones never leave us. We don't ever truly die. I don't know what happens when we get to the other side, but I do know that my husband still exists, and my dad has passed since then as well. 4 years after my husband. And my dad has also been visiting me and giving me signs that he's still with us as well. So it's just a magical world. And I'm so blessed for the struggles that I've been through, because it has made me a stronger person. It's taught me a lot. And though I still have a lot to learn, I'm far ahead of the 20-something-year-old that I was when my husband was murdered. So it's kind of the gist of my story.
Beautiful story.
Thank you.
And it's still going on.
It is still going on. It'll go on. My story is going to keep going on till the day I die. So it's
Our
very
story Our story doesn't begin here and it doesn't end here.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Tia. I believe I got a text from let's see, hold on a second. Rebecca, that she didn't know how to ask how to raise the hand because she's on the phone. So, Rebecca, do you want to ask a question or you want to comment? She probably doesn't know how to do that. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's go to Andrea. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Tia.
Hi,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Hi. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible story. It's really extraordinary. And I was really fascinated by the psychomantium because I was told to put up a meditation cabinet, and it's a pitch black thing, but there's no mirror inside of it, and you sit in there and meditate and really amazing stuff happens. Can you tell us a little more about the psychomantium, and do you still use it?
I don't still use it. I feel like I got the evidence out of it that I needed to get. But as I'm not a psychomantium expert, but there's a whole book about the psychomantium as well. The way that Dr. Moody explained it to me is that there are there the ancients, they would use something dark and reflective, and sometimes it was like a puddle of water inside of a cave, or a black obsidian, kind of like mirror polished black obsidian. And then this is where the crystal ball comes from too, where it's like scrying. But you can just gaze into it and things will actually come out of the mirror or the crystal ball. Dr. Moody actually recommended that I get a crystal ball, and not a natural one. He said you want to get just a clear one, the glass one, because you want it to be crystal clear. You don't want there to be any inclusions in it, because that's where the experience is coming from, is the clearness of it. But I don't really know a whole lot about it, except the ancients used it, and that was the ways that they could foretell the future. Very similar, like I said, to the crystal ball. So it's definitely very interesting. And if you're interested in learning more about the psychomantium, Dr. Moody has a book about the psychomantium, I believe. So I would definitely recommend reading that, because he can tell you a lot more. He invented the psychomantium. He took aspects of the ancient cultures and put them all together. So part of it is you want it to be a dark room, but not completely dark, but you don't want any reflections in whatever you're looking at in the mirror. You want it angled so that you can't see your reflection, or like the ceiling or window, or any trim on your wall or anything like that. But he also has a little light that goes behind you, like not even as bright as a night light, just barely, maybe like barely a candlelight. Even darker, not even as light as candlelight. I don't know what he used, but it was just barely anything. And that would go behind you so you didn't see any reflection. Now, I'll tell you, when I did it, it wasn't nearly as good as his. I just had blinds on the window, and I could see my ceiling fan in the mirror. So I don't think it has to be perfect. Maybe that's why it took longer for me. I don't know, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It will work if it's not. But Andrea was on my podcast, and I get daily emails about her beautiful sound healing. She is amazing, and she's doing so much wonderful work. And what is you have a crystal ball with you?
I do.
Look at that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, it's good to see you, Andrea.
Nice to see you too. Nice. And thank you so much for your story. It's really touching.
Thank you, Andrea. Marie, and then Kathy. Marie, you're on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Tia, thank you again. I mean, I am the president of your fan club. That's,
Oh,
you know, and honestly, I go to sleep every night listening to your words, we don't die. You know, that's how you end all your podcasts, telling people that we live forever and we don't die. And how wonderful that you and Terry came to Earth with this plan and you loved each other that much to do that, you know, for humanity. That's what you did. Thank you. Thank
thank
you for everything that you do. Tia, you have become such a wonderful podcaster, such a good interviewer, and you're such a good listener with true humility, you know? So you just keep going, girl. You keep getting bigger and bigger.
Oh my gosh, you're making.
So honored to be here with you, love. Keep it
Thank you
up.
so much, Marie. You are.
You're quite welcome.
I adore you.
If
Thank
you need
you.
any help, kid, I'm in Connecticut. I got you.
Thank you. The same for you as well. And I'm so glad that you enjoy the podcast. And I really, truly hope that it is helpful for you.
It helps me daily, kiddo. You and a ton of others, but you every day for sure.
It's interesting that you said that Terry and I came here with a plan because people used to tell me that, and I thought, that's dumb. I didn't do that. Why would I choose that? But I know that is true now that we planned that.
Catalysts are funny, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Catalysts are funny. Every single catalyst for spiritual growth that I have had has been through a tower moment
Mhm.
and a dark night of the soul. And, you know, I'm hoping that end of the game is over. I can do some smooth sailing and some spreading of the message now, you know?
Right.
So again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie. Kathy.
I got it now. Hi, Tia.
Hi, Kathy.
That background isn't real, right?
No.
It's,
I'm fantasizing that it's winter time because I'm ready.
it's fabulous, and it just looks so nice. So you mentioned that you were a Christian, and I also went down that road too, spiritually seeking when I was young. So I kind of know what that's like. How do you deal with the kind of Christian people that you were around at that time now that you have all this spiritual knowledge? How do you deal with their, well, you know, kind of what I mean, right?
Yeah. So I have a lot of family that are very, very strong Christians. And they take the Bible very literal, and they live each and every moment of their life by the words in the Bible. And I love them with all my heart, and I never want to disturb our relationship. And so I don't speak about it with them. They don't know about my podcast. And I feel like other people outside my family, I'll get some people like viewers that they say, well, this near-death experience didn't mention Jesus, so it's fake. It's okay. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone. If the video, if my story, whatever experiences they're hearing, if it resonates with them, then that's wonderful. And I'm really excited about that. And if it doesn't, then that's okay too. And I don't know everything. I'm still learning. And so people are still planting seeds in my head, and I hope I'm planting seeds in others as well. So I think it's a big collaboration. We all come together and we bring our experiences, and when we do that, we learn more than if we just concentrate and focus on our own thoughts and feelings and experiences. So I don't force anything. And like I said, my family that I love dearly, I just don't even talk about it.
Yes, I understand that. Did that hold you back at all in trying to accept what you understand now?
No. I don't think so. But you know what? Now that you say that, it's possible that it could have. It took me a very long time to kind of integrate all my experiences. And I didn't even know that I had a near or shared death experience until a year ago or less. So for 20 years, I thought that it was a panic attack until I told someone the story and they said, that sounds like a shared death experience. And I was like, wait a minute, it does. But it's like it never dawns on you. So it's possible. It's possible that it could have inhibited my progress.
Yeah. Yes. 40 years before I told the story of my NDE. And then once I found out at an IANDS meeting that that was considered that, I had to reframe 40 years of a lifetime to say, oh, now I understand. Oh, is that what happened? Oh, is that why I can do what I can do? Wow. You know, it was, it was great. It was great.
Yeah, you're right. I have been through that as well. Looking back after I learned that it was a shared death experience, I feel like looking back, it's kind of changed my past for me a little bit. Some of the experiences make a little more sense, and some of the things that I didn't have the answers for, I felt like I was closer to having answers for. So yes, it's very interesting how things unfold.
Like you said, it's magical. Thank
Yes,
you. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I believe Jane is next and then Jim.
Thank you so much, Tia. I just wanted to share with you that I also lost my husband tragically. And I thought that was it. I would never see him again, right? I found the spiritualists like you did. Spiritualists, they've been wonderful. And yeah, he's back. There is no death. In fact, he comes through the mediums at church most Sundays. And so now everybody at church knows him. Like they've never seen him physically, but all the mediums there are like, "Oh, Jane, your husband's here." Like, "Oh, great." But he also is with me. He touches me. He talks to me. It's like you say, it turns your life into something really magical because there's no separation. You know, we're all.
What were your thoughts about that before he passed away?
He had a brain injury and he had turned into a person I didn't know. And I had to divorce him because he became too dangerous for me to live with. And I could not get help for him while I was married to him. I had to divorce him to get him help. And I didn't know what to make of it because he had been my soulmate. We had been married for almost 40 years. And I had no idea. I was just like, I didn't even ask why it was happening. I was dealing with his illness. It made me very sick, you know, because the caregiver is the one who usually dies first. And another reason I had to divorce him is because my therapist was like, if you don't, you're going to die first. He will outlive you. And he did pass away last March. No, a year ago, March. It was March of 23. And to have been married to someone that long who was your best friend, your soulmate, I always knew our marriage was very special because we never lost interest in each other as we aged. We understood each other without speaking to each other. I would know what he was thinking, and he would know what I was thinking, and he knew me better than anyone. It was like losing a part of myself. But when he came back, the night he died, No, it was 3 nights later. He passed away on a Friday, and 3 days later, I'm sitting on my patio, just, it was evening. I was enjoying the evening, and he came to me. His spirit came. I'll never forget it, because he was wearing these striped pajamas, and he never wears pajamas. I was like, where'd you get these pajamas? And he dropped to his knees in front of me and cried. He cried and he said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry for how I treated you. And that was the most healing thing that ever could have happened, because I knew, intellectually, that the guy I married would never have treated me the way he did. He actually held a knife to my throat. And so I had, some serious recovery to do. And his coming back, and it's been more than wonderful to have that love again. It's just as real as it always was. And he touches me, hugs me, holds me, everything. It's all there. And it's amazing. And I'm really glad that you also can have a taste of that. You can have that experience. And I hope all the widows and widowers out there can know that you can still connect with your loved one. And they are right there, and they want to connect with you. And it's incredible.
It's easier than you think too. Like when
when
I was looking for the wipes, and this was just, I don't know, weeks after he died, I was just tell me where the wipes are.
Yeah.
And then I knew where the wipes were. It's so much easier than you think it is. You think that you have to have some special skill or training or something like that, and you don't. It's really fascinating.
Yes. I have had the same experience with finding stuff. I'll go like, I can't find my glasses. I go, honey, can you help me find my glasses? And usually I just calm myself down and wait. And I'll just go, and sometimes he will like direct my head, and my eyes will land right on what I'm looking for. Like it's right there, and he'll show it to me. So I experienced that as well. It's really cool. So,
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jane. That's very
well,
comforting.
thank you for sharing your story. It's amazing. I love it's wow. And for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Jim, did you change your mind? Because next is Evan.
No, I'm ready. I just turned my mic back on.
Go ahead.
Tia, so you mentioned a little while back that you had to be really careful about sharing your story with your family members. My ultimate question is, how did it affect how you feel, how your relationships were affected? Did you find you grew apart from them? Did you distance yourself from them? Did you redefine what family is? What was the aftermath of that?
It didn't really change anything for me. I knew their position, and it won't ever change. I mean, that I can foresee, but I love my family unconditionally, and it doesn't change anything for me. I would be in the same position that they are if I hadn't been through what I had been through. So it's not my job to judge them or to feel differently about them.
Another question, did any of them sense something had changed in you?
I think my parents were probably the only one, and maybe my husband's parents also, because at first they were atheists as well, and at first I was sharing a lot of things with them, and I had a medium reading that I had recorded that described his injuries, and that really affected his mother. And I don't know if it was in a good way or not, because they didn't really talk about thoughts and feelings. They were just
Right.
not that kind of family. So I learned to let that go. But what was the question? I'm so sorry.
I was wondering how it changed your relationships with the family with whom you could not share this deep, incredible
Oh
experience.
yeah. So my parents probably sensed it as well, because they didn't just sense it. I mean, I was sharing things with them, and the out of body experiences, they kind of had an intervention with me about the out of body experiences. They had
Good luck
people
with
over.
that.
Yeah, they had people over from church, and they sat me down on the couch, and they started to tell me that
Now, honey.
that they told me the government, one of the people that they brought is a very well-known politician, son of a president, and he was telling me about the government programs that they had done that he knew about, and was that people were going crazy and it wasn't a good idea to dabble in that. But then again, I wasn't dabbling in it. These things were happening to me. I wasn't
Yeah,
seeking them
yeah,
out.
yeah. You didn't ask for this.
Exactly. And I think they just didn't understand that. And that's okay too. And they were just coming at me with all the love that they could
Yeah,
provide. It was their way of loving me. And that's okay. And I appreciated it.
I've experienced similar things, so I am totally with you on this. And there's just no, I mean, where there's already, for us who are I'll just say it, initiated, there's already a paltry vocabulary. And when you're dealing outside of our experience with people who just don't have that experience, there's no vocabulary. There's none that's going to satisfy. And if you try to rely on your own experience and example, I mean, you're already operating in a sphere they just didn't even know existed and just can't see it. So that was the fundamental basis of my question, because it's not easy.
No, you're right. And that the way you described it is on point, because it was like I had that feeling that they just didn't understand. So there was no negative feelings inside me for them. They
Right.
just didn't understand. Because once you have an experience like that, you realize that people don't understand what you're saying.
And how much experience blows book knowledge out of the water. You
Exactly.
have to have the experience. If you don't have the experience, you're just not going to get there. I'm sorry. That's been my experience, and that's my belief. Well, good on you for keeping on.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, Evan, and then Glenn before I go back to Jane. Thank you. Evan?
Tia, thank you so much for sharing tonight. That was absolutely beautiful. I really appreciated your words and your stories. They're incredibly helpful. I wanted to thank you also for interviewing me on your blog. I know I shared my email at that time, and I received a lot of emails from people from all over the country who listened to you. So you have a tremendous impact, and you're doing a terrific job. And it's interesting. I received an email from a mother who shared with me her story of losing her oldest daughter to suicide. And her story was absolutely beautiful. And she told of how her daughter had unmistakably returned to her many times, and to her younger sister. And this had kept the mother from dropping into the abyss, which she surely would have fallen into had her daughter not made the attempt to come back and allow her to know that there is no death and that we all live on and on. It was a beautiful story, and I shared it with others as often as I could. And the story went on, and I'd receive another email from somebody who'd heard that story, and another person who had benefited from the story. And I want you to know that the people that listen to you are uplifted, and that it forms a string that goes around the world. And I salute you on all your wonderful work. Thank you again for sharing tonight.
You couldn't have given me a better compliment. Thank you. That is my life's mission now. That is the only thing I want to do, is to help people get over this fear of death and losing their loved ones and dying. I'm so happy to hear what you shared, that it was helpful. Thank you, Evan.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glenn, you're next. Hi, Glenn.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tia. Thank you for your story. It was amazing. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. But, I really appreciate it. And I mean, to go through such a hardship and to come through the other end and be inspiring and hearing all these other people. I haven't personally listened to you or heard you before, but the meeting tonight was exceptionally warm and loving, it felt to me. And I really felt an upswell of incredible energy. So I give you all the credit for helping set that table. And thank you, everybody, for participating in that. I can't think of a question to ask. It's just so inspiring. I think I'll just say thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Glenn. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Okay, Jane. Jane, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I grew up in evangelical land. I knew the Grahams, I knew Leighton Ford's family, I knew all those people. My brother is a famous missionary pastor. I know exactly what you are talking about. They did the same thing to me. And I was the same way. It's like, hey, I'm not doing this. Like, it's just happening to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I didn't ask for this. So I did. I love them all. And I'm still friends with them. I just don't share certain things with them. That's all, and they wouldn't get it. So I don't bother, but I can share love. And that's what I do. So
That's all you need to do.
yeah,
And like I said, look at it as that they're loving you in the way that they best know how. And
absolutely.
I
And
take
I'm
no offense
happy
to
that they do love. They do love. They're good people and they do great things. So I appreciate them.
Right.
Thank you, Jane. Patrick, you're next.
Hi, Tia. I'm not sure if you noticed, I was the new person to the group today, but I just felt like I had to say something because I was so inspired by your story. And I know if you had to do it all over again, I understand that how tough that would be. But, you and him are transforming the world. I feel like a lot of these stories are transforming the world and helping us understand just why we are here. And, I don't even think I would ever label my experience an NDE if I didn't hear other people's experiences, which brings me to my question, like, what's the impact the podcast had on you and your understanding of your own experience? And I know it must be really fulfilling to be able to help people spread the word about these things. But also just thank you for your story. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. The podcast has impacted me immensely. I don't even have words to describe. It was like I've gone through 20 years, the 20 years previously of learning spiritual concepts. I've done that all over again, 20 years worth of learning just since I started my podcast in January. So it's just been accelerated learning, accelerated epiphanies, because I can focus so much of my life on it. And I'm hearing so many people's experiences, which I feel when you listen to other people's experiences, it does accelerate your own journey. It does help you learn more about who you are. And I think that's why I encourage people to share their experiences, because for one, you're helping yourself. I've heard a lot of people say that when they share their experience, they have some miraculous healing or epiphany that happens to them within days, especially if they've never shared it before. But two, you're helping everyone that hears your experience. You're helping them to decipher what reality is, because it's not what we thought it was. You're helping them to heal a wound, even if it's just a childhood trauma. There's so much that people gain from listening to experiences, and I get to do that every single day, raw and uncut, unedited, and I get to ask the questions. And I feel like this is a dream come true for me. It's absolutely amazing. And I've learned so much. So it's impacted me in a very intense way. And I'm trying to get out of even having to do real estate anymore and just do my podcast full time, because it just means so much to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Greg, are you there?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good.
I'm not dead yet. My Monty Python invitation. Hey, I want to thank you for your presentation. I want to say I too find comfort in my wife as well in reading and listening to NDE stories, and just this discussion about organized religion. What I have found is it does work for the people, and I know, and I understand no one's religion bashing here, but I have found it works for the people who it works for, but it didn't work for me. I did end up going into the evangelical thing, believe it or not, for like a little bit, and I found I was more scared of God than loving God. And I was constantly like looking at like, okay, my kids choose the exact moment I'm talking to start doing this. Great, and I'm sorry about that. They choose the exact moment I'm on to do that. I would be like taking like count of everyone around me, be like, okay, which one of these people are going to go to hell, and how can I stop them? I mean, one day I was scared out of my mind because I saw this on like television preacher, just scratching my nose, and he made me really frightened. I remember driving. I may have shared the story before, and I literally heard a voice in my head because I said to myself something like, "God must hate me" or something. And I heard this voice in my head say, "Why would I hate you? I created you." And it was just like, whoa, And I just started like really thinking, not because of that, but I just eventually just kept asking questions, and I just kept exploring. And, I think there's more than even we know here, but there's, because I know the veil kind of goes back on when you come back to this place. But I just wanted to comment on that, and thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I think you're right that there's a place for organized religion. And I fit into that place before my experience. That was a good place for me. I don't know where I would have been without it. It gave me, the morals that I needed, and the direction, and the box that I needed to fit into. And then my experiences happened, and I didn't fit inside that box anymore. So I understand what you're saying. I do believe there's a good reason for organized religion.
And I would add too that a lot of them trying to convert is love, because they really think they need to bring you to God, and that they're doing a loving thing by it. So it's not, if I can stop looking at it as judgment and see it more as love, they're trying, my wife has a lot of people on her side of the family who are in friends who are born again, and I'll tell you, they would take the coat off their back to help you. But I would not admit to them that I'm into this stuff, because they would be like, well, we gotta protect you. So as far as they were concerned, I'm a born again too. But I can't, I don't have a podcast, so I guess that's easier for me to hide. But
Adam, come here.
Thank you, Greg. Rebecca's been finally on, so I'm going to take Rebecca first before Jane. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Tia. Hi everybody. Thank you. I was listening. I had a hard time getting in on the meet. I had to download the new app, but anyway, I did get to call in and hear your experiences, and I wanted to first say that I'm sorry for your losses, and that's pretty. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a shared death experience, but I was so able to identify with when you said the gold. And you said if you took a pencil or a pen and you drew an outline of a form. My experience has been, before my near-death experience, I've always had something that I didn't know what to call it. I didn't have names for it. I thought I was just a weird little kid. And then I had my near-death experience, and all along in between there, I call them the beings of light. They were that gold color. And my husband didn't physically die, but he left our marriage after a very long time, 32 years. So, and then my dad died right after that. My other favorite human on the planet, other than my children. But so when I saw these beings of light, this being of light, I was in a room and I was so sad. I had so much grief. And it was standing in front of me. It was like if I took an outline, like you said, with a pencil, and I outlined a shorter, stockier form of me, and it at the time, and it was standing right in front of me, and then it hugged me. And we hugged, and then that feeling that you described, which can only perfectly said, and I think it doesn't do it justice myself, is peace and love. It's the only way I could, and it went right in through where my rib cage meets, and then it went through every pore of my body, and it lit up this white room we were in, or this white space. Not even a room. I don't even want to call it a room. There were no walls. It was just all white, and then it made the whole area we were in gold. That gold. And my ex-husband, gave me a picture once of me as a gift in southern coastal Maine by the ocean. And we were there for him to see the sunrise, and he had never seen it. And no one had ever given me an inanimate object that made me actually cry, ever. Nothing. Not even my kids, nothing. Right? These kids that I love more than anything in the world, nothing. And I open it, he had it wrapped, and he took a picture of me that morning. We were there for him. And I was just standing by the ocean. I'm this little speck in the photo. You can barely see me. And what you can see is that we have the sun to the left, that same exact gold. And I can't even begin to say, when you said, and I just got some news that made me a little frightened of death, despite all the proof of otherwise, all the people that have passed to come visit me, the beings of light, all the, what I'll give them a name, angel. I'm just calling him an angel. But I got some news recently that scared me, and hearing what you said tonight, and coming to hear this support group, and knowing that there's so many others that I really, really don't have anything to be afraid of. And since I got the news that made me afraid, my dad came to visit me. He sat next to me. Just wonderful, wonderful things, people that are coming into my life that are meant to be there. And I don't know your podcast. I'd love to find out how I could listen to it and find it. I'm horribly technically challenged, but I've also been sitting here thinking, I don't know if I'm supposed to tell my story that I was told to tell in a writing book, because I always wanted to do a podcast, and I screwed that up too. But anyway, I just identified, I loved your message. I love your message of hope, and everything is connected, and I love it. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for that, inspirational. And again, you're smiling, right? You're smiling. You're not crying every day. And I too have been crying for so many years, and it's finally stopping. It's finally stopping. So just thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That makes my heart so happy. And if you want to watch the podcast, it's just Tia Renee on YouTube. You can just, I think there's a link to it in the email that was sent out. But
okay.
Otherwise, it's if you put Tia Renee in YouTube, there's another Tia Renee, but you won't mistake me for anybody else. But Rebecca, I am so glad to hear that whatever this news was that you had that was frightening you, that your dad came to help you, because there's no better evidence that you need,
Yeah.
He came from the other side.
And he helped me find my headband, or someone did the other day. And I literally had to run out of the house, and I was like, please, oh my gosh, I had 5. Now where are they? And they're taking my forks and they're moving them because they're helping me, I think, lose weight. And literally like, hello, you need to lose the weight. And I went in that bedroom, and I had that room spick and span. And then I went in there, and there it was, lying right there. And I was like, thank you. I asked, and there it was. And I said, thanks. So I just talked to them like they're here in my apartment, which is dark now, and I'm by candlelight. So I'm not any kind of, I just haven't gotten up and turned on my light, but thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. It's the best stuff there is.
Yeah, for real. I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so inspiring.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Jane, did you have something else to say? Your sound is not on.